श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तिसुदेशिकेन्द्रं द्वैपायनं सूत्रकृतं मुनीन्द्रं श्रीशङ्करं भाष्यकृतं यतीन्द्रं मद्देशिकञ्चापि नमामि विद्यै। ओम नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्यासम्प्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितप्रज्ञानगणः प्रत्यगतो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। Pranams everyone. So in this introduction to Vedanta series, we saw that the human pursuits or human goals are in four in nature: Artha, Kama, Dharma and Moksha. And for every person or every jiva, moksha is the ultimate goal. Moksha is the final goal, final destination. Artha, Kama, Dharma are all intermediary goals for us to actually transcend. To attain moksha, there have been sadhanas given, there have been varnas given, varnas structured, ashramas structured. The varnas are social structure, ashramas are individual structure. And with regards to the sadhanas that each a person has to pursue for each varna is also given. Apart from the dharma, how the dharma has to be followed. In that we saw karma yoga as the first major sadhana to be pursued at the grahastha ashrama level. As a grahastha ashrami, a person has to follow karma yoga. Karma yoga gives a person chitta shuddhi. Karma yoga is basically converting the actions into a sadhana, such that we do not get any papa or punya out of it, and we are able to get the benefit of chitta shuddhi, which is a pure mind. The next sadhana, major sadhana, is upasana yoga. Upasana yoga is basically manasa vyapara, ability to bring chitta ekagrata. Chitta ekagrata means the mind to be stable, the mind to be focused. But before we can treat the mind, we will have to ensure that the other layers that are covering the mind are also, or influencing the mind, are also first taken care of. In that we saw kayikam, vachikam before going into manasam. And from a physical body standpoint, we said we should not ignore the physical body. We should ensure that the body is kept healthy. Health maintenance should not be seen as pampering, but at the same time we should not pamper. We should ensure that the physical body is maintained properly. Then the verbal condition, we saw from a vachika hamsa, we saw that the words have to be, before speaking any words, we will have to understand, we will have to validate whether it falls into the four categories. One, it is anudvega karam. We saw whether it is harmless. It doesn't create any bit of himsa to others. Second is satyam. It is truthful. Third is priyam. In the sense it is agreeable, it is polite, it is soft, it is gentle. Then the fourth one is hitam. Hitam means it is helpful. It is helpful to the listener. So that is the vachika tapas that a person has to do before they try to control the mind. Then we saw manasa amsa, mental conditioning. This is very difficult pursuit because, as I said, mind is a subtle instrument. So mind being a subtle instrument, the condition that the control that we may have may not be as much as we have for any physical part of the body. And mind cannot be handled without taking care of the body and speech. Therefore, we used those things as stepping stone before we come to the mind conditioning. Even in Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali, although the yoga sadhana is about mental conditioning, Patanjali also talks about physical and verbal discipline also. And even in Bhagavad Gita, under the title of meditation in the 6th chapter, Bhagavan also talks about Ahara Niyama. What the food has to be, there has to be discipline in the food that we consume also to be able to control the mind. We believe that the mind is not alone. It is not a separate instrument that acts. There are a lot of influences around it as well. In fact, body and mind, as I said, is connected to speech and mind. Body and mind are connected, speech and mind are connected. And if we actually split our body into the 5 layers, we have this Pancha Kosha. People who have gone through this yogas as a discipline, they would know there is Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manonmaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandamaya Kosha. So the Manonmaya Kosha is between Pranamaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Kosha. So anything that affects them, these two will also affect the mind. And we have to, before we go to the Manonmaya Kosha also, we should take care of the Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha. So in terms of food, before we sit for meditation, whenever we have to sit for meditation, we have to take care of these things also. So when we want to sit for meditation, we should not have had too much of food, or we should not be starving also. So we should have taken that. And then the Pranamaya Kosha should have been taken care. We should not have done too much work and come and sit for meditation, or we should not have just been very lazy and then come to meditation also. And then before coming to the mind, we should ensure that the sense organs are disciplined, the indriyas are disciplined, and we should also ensure that nothing is there in the mind that can get us overtly excited or depressed before we sit for meditation. And then from a Vijnanamaya Kosha, we should not be thinking about our responsibilities, office work, home, housework, responsibilities of as a parent, as a student, as a teacher, as a neighbor. All those things, responsibilities should be kept aside before we start meditating. So meditation, although the meditation activity itself is only going to take about 15 minutes, the dhyanam that we do for 15 minutes, it depends on how we conduct ourselves in the remaining 23 hours and 45 minutes. So all these things would make an influence, or would influence the way we meditate. And therefore Upasana is not easy. We have to do it step by step. A lot of people would have tried meditation, but they would have given up because they don't follow the step by step approach. In terms of meditation, before we start looking at the concentration meditation or try to focus and try to think of a particular form or anything, the first bit of meditation that we have to do is to call as relaxation meditation. This is the first type of meditation. So this meditation is where the aim is to relax the mind. Relax the mind and relax all the body parts in general. And this includes basically the physical withdrawal. We sit in a place without movement. We do verbal withdrawal. We don't talk to anyone. We do a sensory withdrawal. We try to avoid listening to what is happening. We close our eyes. We don't want to see what is happening around us. This is to ensure or culminate in the relaxation of the mind, because we are shutting things that can go into our mind by closing our eyes, by not listening or going to a place where it is silent. And this is the first step of meditation that we have to do, and we have to do this for a few minutes every day. Just relaxation meditation. Just try to sit in a position calmly without any movement, and it is better to try on the same time, same position, same place for a few days. The outcome would be that when we actually continue to do this, initially the mind will wander. The mind will keep wandering, but we'll try to relax it. We'll try to do an auto suggestion to the mind, saying that relax, it's fine, everything is fine, my body is fine, my life is good. And we try to keep relaxing. We try to relax our mind. If we continue to do it over a period of few days, few months, depending on each individual, the outcome would be a relaxed mind after that time. The outcome should be that after I get up, after that 15 minutes or 10 minutes, when I sit and then get up, my mind should be relaxed and my mind should not be tired. If we try to, initially the first few times it would be like very tiring, because we would be trying to bring our mind from various parts. But the objective of this meditation here should be allow the mind to be what it is. Do not try to focus on the thoughts that are coming. Just ensure that the mind is relaxed. So we should make this as a habit, sitting calmly every day. We should make sure that when we do that, any kind of thoughts that are coming which is making my mind agitated, he said this in this morning, that person is always like this, all these negative thoughts, when it comes, we will have to let it go. We will have to just replace it with another thought. And this meditation is particularly important in today's times. Life is fast paced, stressful. So this relaxation meditation will also help us to focus in our day-to-day activities. It can be also called as de-stressing meditation. So this is the first type of meditation that a person has to follow. Relaxation meditation. Then once we have done this relaxation meditation over a period of time, we can do the next step of meditation, which is called as the focusing meditation. The focusing meditation is more like a concentration meditation, where I train my mind to develop attention on something over a period of time. The capacity to focus in a field that I am actually choosing for a length of time, that is called as focused meditation. And that could be it could be used both in the material field as well as the material world, as well as in the spiritual field. Even it is required for, if you look at sports persons, they need to do that. They have to be focused. So their only focus would be to actually do that particular, for them their particular practice session that they have to do, they do it in a very focused manner. They do not get distracted. So whether it is sports, whether it is studying, even people who are studying, it's focused on a particular field, so they want to study in that particular textbook or whatever without getting distracted. So sports, studying, or even listening to a class. And in our scriptures, with regards to spirituality, we prescribe Manasa Puja or mental worship. The mental worship of Ishvara is prescribed. Mental worship has got three different things. One is mental or Manasa Parayanam. Manasa Parayanam means mental chanting. Mental chanting of something. Parayanam means a sloka, stotra. That is called this mental Manasa Parayanam, mental chanting. The second one is Manasa Puja. Manasa Puja is where I actually bring Ishvara into my mind and I offer puja. I get the Ishvara to sit. I actually visualize Ishvara to I visualize Ishvara in which I wash his legs. I visualize Ishvara where I offer flowers. I do fan the Ishvara, and then I offer Nevedya, I offer Deeparadhana and all those things. So that is Manasa Puja. And then the final one is the Manasa Japa, where I mentally chant one Nama of Ishvara continuously. So Parayana refers to chanting any prayer, any stotra, whereas Japa, it is only one name of the Ishvara. And of these three, the Japa meditation is the most important, because that is where my mind gets trained very well. Mind is always, it is actually a train of thoughts. Thoughts keep coming into my mind, and within matter of seconds the thought keeps changing, and I am not, no person is able to predict that train of thoughts also. Where is going to be my next thought? It is very difficult to predict the next train of thought. So in this case, I am actually leaving the control to the mind to tell me what it is going to think next. So for bringing the control back to me in terms of telling my mind what it has to think is important. And therefore when I do the japa, I tell my mind, you don't have a choice, but you have to just bring that thought, because it is manasa japa. Remember, it is not verbal japa. I am telling my mind, you will have to think about that particular japa, that particular nama of Ishvara into my mind, into the mind. So I actually try to regain the control of my mind. And when I practice this, I learn to control my mind better. And by learning to control it better, I can make it concentrate on the thing that I want it to be. So initially, this japa, as I said, first we cannot go to this focus meditation. We will have to do relaxation meditation for a few days, practice it, and over a period of time, then come to focus meditation. And when we come to focus meditation also, try to do Manasa Parayana, Manasa Puja first, over some days, train our mind, then come to Manasa Japa. And even when we start Manasa Japa, even then we will have difficulty to say, go beyond 10 namas. Say, the mind would have escaped. The mind would just escape. It does not matter. We should not feel guilty, or we should not lose hope, because these kind of fluctuations keep coming and going. That's the nature of the mind. That is how the mind is supposed to work. That is how the mind works. But we should continue to practice. And the longer that we are able to do japam, the more control we will have on our mind. So once I am able to control my mind, once I am able to do a japam for a longer, lengthy period of time, once I am able to control my mind, I should not stop meditating. I should keep continuing it on a daily basis. It is just like an air conditioner, only when it is on, the room will be cool. The moment I switch off the air conditioner, the room becomes warm. In the same manner, only as long as I am able to do japa, I will be able to control the mind. The moment I think I have controlled the mind and I stop japa, the mind will go back to its original base. So we'll have to keep meditating, and by doing this meditation, our mind will be calm because we would have completed the relaxation meditation. The mind will have the tendency to relax at my will, because if I continue to do relaxation meditation over a period of time, I tell my mind to relax, it will start relaxing. And now with the japa, I would have been able to make the mind concentrate on things. So now I will have control on my mind in terms of calming the mind as well as focusing the mind. So these two are important disciplines to control the mind, and that we need to bring in as sadhanas. Apart from these two, which is the relaxation meditation and the focused meditation, there are two other disciplines that we can or we should bring it in our sadhanas. And that is also related to mind. And that is also a type of meditation. Those two are also types of meditations. The first one is expansion meditation. Expansion meditation, here what I try to do is to expand my mind to visualize the totality of this creation. I try to visualize the entire creation. Only then I know how relatively insignificant I am. What is our relative significance? Nothing but close to zero. But we always have a wrong perspective with regards to our lives and situations. We always think our problems are the most important things in life. And we give so much of importance, we think and we make it look as if the world will come to an end if this problem is not sorted. And that kind of a perception that we give to these problems, it actually makes us commit to wrong responses also. The way I should react, the way I should treat that particular situation, it all goes wrong. So everything I have to ensure that I put it in its place, and for me to put it in its place, I understand or I look at myself from the standpoint of totality. I should look myself I should go up, and as they say, 10,000 feet view of things, or 50,000 view, 50 feet of things, or bird's eye view, as they say. And how am I able to do that? My mind has to expand. My mind has to expand, only then I would be able to be able to place things as where they are. So in this meditation, I look at the creation itself. I look at stars, I look at galaxies, I think of the solar system, I think of the planets, I think of continents, I think of rivers, I think of mountains, birds, varieties of birds, animals, human beings, varieties of human beings. So there I am trying to expand this creation and saying how big this creation is. This is called as Vishwarupa Dhyana. The technical term is Vishwarupa Dhyana, where I look upon this creation as universal form of Ishvara. This creation itself to be Ishvara. And by this form of meditation, I visualize the totality. And this is needed. I need to visualize the totality. It is an important meditation because I need my mind to expand. My mind should not be only there to focus on things. It should be also be able to expand. Why I need to expand the mind? Only then I will be able to reduce the raga dveshas. We already saw raga dvesha, the attachment and aversion towards other things. And elimination or reduction of raga dvesha is important. Because even if you look at the Puranas and other stories, you would see even the Rakshasas were so good in doing tapas. They were able to do focused meditation. They have been, whether Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, or so many other Rakshasas, they were able to do focused meditation over a long period of time. They had their mind very much under their control. But they did not do the expansion meditation. Their mind was full of only raga dveshas. So therefore, only doing focused meditation is not good enough. We have to do expansion meditation also. So this is the third form of meditation, we can say, which is the expansion meditation. Then the fourth one is value meditation. Value meditation can also be called as transformation meditation. Transforming what? Transforming myself. It is about inner transformation. It is about transforming my thought patterns. Because we generally neglect our thought patterns. Because it is, first of all, it is too subtle, and it is very fleeting, and most of the time others don't see it. Even I am not able to recognize it many of the times, the thought that comes to my mind, because I am not able to objectify my thoughts in many cases. I think I am the thought, so I am not able to objectify my thoughts. And this thought pattern, I have to transform it. I have to change it. Because this thought pattern will determine my life. It will determine my journey. And in the end, it will determine my destiny also. There is a famous saying, right? Watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become action. Watch your actions, they become habit. And watch your habits, they become your character. And watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. So the thought is very important. What kind of thought patterns my mind has, I have to focus, I have to understand, and I have to transform if needed. The thought is the subtlest bijam. Any person, before a person acts on anything, even if I want to get up from this place, first the thought comes, I need to get up, and then I convert them into action. But it happens so quickly sometimes, and we don't even recognize the thought that is coming into our mind. But every action that we do is preceded by a thought. So the thought is the seed, the subtlest form, the bijam. In Sanskrit we say yad bhavam tad bhavati. As you think, so you become. So I have to understand what sort of thought patterns are there in my mind. I have to objectify my thoughts, I have to understand my thoughts, and I have to validate my thoughts. And thought patterns can be broadly classified into two: Daivi Sampat thoughts and Asuri Sampat thoughts. Daivi Sampat meaning divine thoughts, good thoughts. Asuri Sampat, demonic thoughts, thought patterns which are negative. And for me to progress spiritually, I will have to ensure my thought process or my thought patterns are Daivi Sampat in nature. In fact, in the 16th chapter of Gita, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan only talks about Daivi Sampat and Asuri Sampat. He takes each of these values of Daivi Sampat and Asuri Sampat and he explains. And the Daivi Sampat, the more Daivi Sampat I have, the more closer I will be to the goal, the spiritual goal of moksha. The more Asuri Sampat thoughts I have, the farther away I will be, or it will take me farther and farther away. I will have to put now double, triple the effort to go closer to the spiritual goal. So we should never neglect watching our thoughts. Or in other words, we have to be constantly aware of our thought patterns. So they determine our future, and therefore the inner transformation of our thought pattern is absolutely necessary. I have to ensure that my thought patterns are noticed, made aware, and I change. And generally, what is Asuri Sampat? All these demonic thoughts: jealousy, depression, impatience, irritation. These are nothing, these are only thoughts actually. But this jealousy, this depression, this impatience, this irritation may be there for a few seconds only or few minutes only. But they will create a vasana, they will create they will leave a residue in my mind that will alter my future, my destiny. The thoughts are like the bricks which will determine the shape of the building. So if I have to change the shape of the building, then I will have to change the brick arrangements. So same way, if I have to transform my life, I have to transform my thought pattern. And so what do I do in the value meditation? What do I do? Okay, now that I know that this thought pattern is important and I have to change it, what do I do I meditate, I sit and meditate, and I visualize myself as a transformed person. I give auto suggestions. I tell my mind I do not have jealousy. I keep telling, and if I am jealous of my neighbor or of my colleague or a friend, I keep telling my mind I am not jealous of that particular person. I am happy for the other person. I keep telling myself positive thoughts. After all, jealousy or pride or hatred or anger or vengeance, or it is not going to affect the other person as much as it is going to affect ourselves. So it is important we change our thoughts. And will it work when I tell myself that I am not jealous of that person, I am not getting angry? Will it work? Yes, it will. Because this mind is a powerful instrument. It is what is called a tremendous Sankalpa Shakti. It has got a Sankalpa Shakti, what we call as resolution strength. The mind, once it makes some kind of, it is able to take fix on certain things, it will hold on to it. So if I am able to feed it good things, it will hold on to it. So this value meditation is about exploiting, as you can say, or you can say utilizing our Sankalpa Shakti. So this is the fourth type of meditation, the value meditation. So the four types of meditation we saw. First one is relaxation meditation, where I first relax my mind. The second one is focused meditation. Focused meditation, I can do it by three parts: Manasa Parayanam, Manasa Puja, Manasa Japa. Then the third one is expansion meditation. I want to remove Raga Dveshas, I want to expand my mind. And the fourth one is the value meditation, where I do some auto suggestion to my mind to remove all the Asuri Sampat and to bring Daivi Sampat. So this are the four types of meditation, is also known as Upasana Yoga. So this is the second major sadhana. The first major sadhana was Karma Yoga. The second major sadhana is Upasana Yoga. Karma Yoga's benefit is I will get Chitta Shuddhi, pure mind. Upasana Yoga's benefit is I will get Chitta Ekagrata, or a focused mind. The mind, as I said, is very important. There is a teamwork between body and mind. In fact, body, speech and mind. All three needs to be healthy. Body has to be healthy. My words or speech should be healthy. When I say speech should be healthy, it should follow those four. Then my mind should be healthy. Then now these three being healthy is one thing. They should also be able to coordinate. They should be also able to integrate. They should not function at cross purposes. In fact, when we lie on purpose, we are creating a division, or we are breaking the coordination between speech and mind. Because my mind knows the truth, but my speech is saying something else. So it breaks the coordination. For a spiritual person, all three has to be well coordinated. So whenever I lie, there is a problem between my mind and speech. Punctuality is another discipline where I try to bring coordination between body, speech and mind. And a integrated personality between body, speech and mind, if they are acting together, if they are acting in unison, if they are acting for the same purpose, if they are well coordinated, it is called as Arjavam. It is called as Arjavam. That is, what I have in my mind, I am able to say. and what I say is what I do. But it is important that I don't have negative thoughts, because then it will result in negative words being spoken and negative action being taken. So it has to be healthy and it has to be coordinated. That is known as Arjavam. The opposite of Arjavam is Vakram. We say in Tamil and we say in some languages, he is Vakra Buddhi Kondava. Vakra Buddhi means a person who is not acting, who is saying something and acting differently, or who is thinking something else and saying something else. So Arjavam is an important one. Thus, the individual health also matters, the teamwork or integration also matters, and together they become Upasana Yoga. Upasana Yoga, or in other places it is also called as Samadhi Yoga, or in some places we say Ashtanga Yoga. So this is Upasana Yoga. So Karma Yoga is suited for Grihasthas. Upasana Yoga is for Vanaprasthas. But having said that, even for a Grihastha, he has to practice Upasana Yoga. Predominant Karma Yoga, bit of Upasana Yoga, some time to be spent on Upasana Yoga also, and some time to be spent on the next yoga, which we will see as Jnana Yoga. For a Vanaprastha, predominantly it is Upasana Yoga, some bit of Karma Yoga, some bit of Jnana Yoga. Just to remind you, understand, Upasana Yoga is a separate activity. I have to sit in a place. I have to do Upasana. So it is a separate activity. Whereas Karma Yoga is not a separate activity at all. We already saw. It is just a shift in attitude. It is just a change in attitude. Any activity, I can convert them into Karma Yoga. I am able to convert all my actions into Karma Yoga. And in a Grihastha's life is full of action. It is filled with activities. So that's why Karma Yoga is prescribed for Grihastha, because he will be able to convert these actions into Karma Yoga just by changing the attitude, shifting the attitude. So whenever a Grihastha is acting, he has to convert that into Karma Yoga, and he has to find some time for doing Upasana Yoga. Whereas for a Vanaprastha, given that he is already retired, for a retired person he will have time, and therefore he will be able to focus or do Upasana Yoga, and he should be spending his time doing Manasa Parayana, Manasa Puja, Manasa Japa, meditation, thinking of Ishvara. This is how our culture or how our Shastras have given. It has made it easy for each person depending on their lifestyle. Now, how do I know whether I have to do Karma Yoga, or whether my Karma Yoga is enough, whether my Upasana Yoga is enough? How do I know the next? Because the next one is Jnana Yoga. When can I move from Karma Yoga to Upasana Yoga? When can I move from Upasana Yoga to Jnana Yoga? So if my mind is interested in listening to Shastras, for example, if you are able to come and listen to this class, not many people will like this class also. They may not have any interest in listening to these things. So if my mind is already interested in listening to Shastras, then it means we have done some bit of karma yoga already. We have done some bit of karma yoga. But if the mind is not at all interested in listening to Shastras, then we have to do more karma yoga. Okay, I'm able to listen, but I can't listen for a long period of time. Half an hour is fine, 1 hour is fine. But don't ask me to sit and listen to this for 4 hours, 5 hours. Then if that is the case, if my mind is not willing to listen to Shastras for a long period of time, or if my mind, I am able to sit but my mind is not able to concentrate when the class is going on, I am not able to concentrate. When the Shastras are being taught, I am not able to concentrate. It keeps going out. Then we have to do Upasana Yoga. So the more amount of Upasana Yoga I am able to do, I am able to focus my mind. And then I can now say I am ready for Jnana Yoga. So when someone follows Karma Yoga, he is able to, he gets free from Raga Dveshas. But even when he is free from Raga Dvesha, his mind is not still stable, it is not able to focus. It is not able to focus on a particular activity. It is not able to give a single pointed effort for a continuously long time, because the mind keeps getting distracted. It keeps getting distracted with other thoughts. Yes, as I said, the mind nature is to keep going out. We have given the mind a lot of freedom. So in terms of bringing that mind back, controlling that mind, a sadhaka needs Upasana Yoga. Because the Upasana Yoga is needed for focusing and expanding the mind. Remember, the mind has to be an instrument. The mind is supposed to be an instrument and not the master. It is supposed to be a slave. It is supposed to be obeying the karta. The karta has to be me. The mind should not be a karta. The mind is a good servant, but a bad master. And this japa, as I said, is an important sadhana, an important form of dhyana to keep the mind focused. This Virat Upasana, this Vishwarupa Upasana is another form of dhyana to make the mind expanding. When we do this Vishnu Sahasranama Parayana, if we do Manasa Parayana, we say Bhuf Pado Yasya Nabir Viyadasura Nilash Chandra Suryau Chanetre. There we are able to expand the whole creation. We are able to expand and understand that the whole creation is Ishvara. Bhuf Pado Yasya Nabir Viyadasura Nilash Chandra Suryau Chanetre. Chandra and Surya are the eyes. So Upasana Yoga is needed for expanding and focusing the mind. So Karma Yoga gives clean and pure mind, and a strong mind, a stable mind, a focused mind is got through Upasana Yoga. When is something strong? Only when I am able to control. Otherwise it is all over the place. When I have a clean, pure and a strong mind, the mind will automatically start looking for the highest truth. It will start desiring moksha naturally. It will seek. And at that point of time, the sadhana that needs to be done is Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is the sadhana, that the next step. It is a course of discipline. as the name itself suggests, jnana means knowledge. So jnana yoga means a course of discipline meant for gaining knowledge. Jnana praptyartam yogaha. Jnana yoga. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of what? We will see it in the next class. Right now we'll take questions if there are any. Can you advise, if you have any questions you can start typing here. Can you advise on what should be the nature of food a person in Vedantic is required to have? A student of Vedanta, a spiritual seeker should have sattvic food. Sattvic food is food is classified into sattvic, and there is a separate chapter in Gita to tell what is a sattvic, rajasic and tamasic food. Sattvic food in general are those that are not spicy, not too hot, not extremely salty, not extremes, it's moderated, is called as sattvic food. And it should not be pungent, it should not be leftovers. That is called as a sattvic food. So that is a sattvic food. So that kind of a food will generate sattvika guna in a person. What we eat, so we become. What should you do if the people trouble you, even if you are doing karma yoga, without expecting anything from them? If there are relations or if there are situations that can be avoided, that you can remove yourself from that situation, then suggest you can do that. If it is about people who are very close and we cannot move ourselves out of that relation, then we try to pray to Ishvara to give us the strength, and we try to change our attitude. We try to set an example and try to change them. If they change, they change. Otherwise, we will have to let them know first that this is not accepted. And if they continue to do, we try to change we ask for Ishvara to give us strength. This, I would say that this has got much more larger answer. And that answer is all there in the Gita portions. So I would suggest after this introduction to Vedanta, people start listening to Gita as well. Bhagavad Gita, where everything, whatever we discuss here, is all dealt much more deeply and much more in detail. What about Hari Om? What about eating onions and garlic? Garlic has also medicinal value. Eating garlic from a medicinal standpoint is different, but if there is no need for a person to have garlic, then that can be avoided because it is not sattvic in nature. But again, it is left to individual preferences. Hari Om. When I do japa, my mind is not concentrated. What to do? Please guide. So as I said, the mind keeps going out. First we will have to consider doing relaxation meditation. We will have to do Manasa Parayanam. Before coming to japa, as I said, first we will have to focus on Manasa Parayanam. Before Manasa Parayanam, we will have to do relaxation meditation. And then we will have to come to Manasa Parayanam, Manasa Puja before we come to Manasa Japa. And of course, initially it will be difficult. Arjuna asked the same question to Krishna in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. He says this mind is so subtle and it is not behaving well. It keeps going out. I am not able to Sanchalami Mana Krishna, he says. The mind is always full of sanchala. So Bhagavan says, yes, that is the nature of the mind. And he says, Abhyasena Vairagya. So he says, do practice, Abhyasa. The more we practice, we will be able to get it. So don't lose hope, keep practicing. And he says Vairagyam. Vairagyam is, we will see what is Vairagyam in few class. The more we have Vairagyam in our mind, the less troublesome our mind will be. We will see about what is Vairagya in a few classes. So there you will be able to understand. Panchakoshas, are they states of mind? Are they connected gross body? Panchakoshas are the 5 sheaths of a body. Our body can be divided into 5 layers. Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manonmaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha and Anandamaya Kosha. We will see about these Panchakoshas in the next few classes. Again, we will go in detail about that. So we'll get there. Hari Om. What about those eating non-veg foods but spiritually oriented? I don't know whether there are any non-veg foods which are spiritually oriented. I don't know. So I'm not saying I know anything there. I don't know. As far as I know, Sattvic food is vegetarian food. If you are spiritually, if you want to progress, you will have to have Sattvic food, and Sattvic food is generally vegetarian food. Hari Om. What if we don't believe in astrology? In last class you mentioned that we need to take help of astrology. Did I say that I need to take help of astrology? I don't remember the context under which I said we need to take help of astrology. Astrology? I don't remember saying that. Maybe you can try listening to the class again and then come up with a clear question. Prayashchittam. Okay. See, I'm saying your prarabdha karma, astrologers will suggest prayashchittam. I said astrologers will suggest prayashchittam, and as a spiritual seeker, if you are spiritually oriented, you will not go for prayashchittam is what I said. Prayashchitta karma is something for a spiritual seeker will not do. What is astrology? Okay, what is this? One of the things is astrology or the horoscope. I wouldn't say astrology. Horoscope that we see is a reflection of our karma pala that we have to go through in this life. So it is not that the planets are giving us problems or giving us good things. It is our prarabdha karma that we are going to get, and that what we are going to get is reflected in the horoscope through planetary positions. That is how you should be reading astrology or horoscopes. It is not that the Guru Bhagavan is giving you, Shani Bhagavan is not giving you, all those things. What you have to go through in this life as a prarabdha is almost given. Majority of it is already laid out because of the karma of our previous births. It is also not given by Bhagavan. He doesn't say you should suffer, you should enjoy. It is basically because of what we have brought in as karma from our previous births, and what we are supposed to go through in the long run is indicated. It's not even specified exactly. It is indicated in the horoscope, and that horoscope has, and how it is indicated through planetary positions. So the planetary positions will reflect the kind of fruits you will get, the kind of situations you are going to get. So it is just a reflection. And as a spiritual seeker, a very matured spiritual seeker will not consult astrologer and will continue to pursue spiritual path through karma and upasana yoga. There you go. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. We will see again in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahishaha. गोब्राह्मणेभ्यो शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः।